All right, everybody, I'm here with Dennis Fabian from Head Sports. Dennis, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks, Mitch, for
And
inviting me for a nice chat on video here.
so Dennis is over in Germany right now. He works at headquarters in Austria. And I've known Dennis for a long time now, and I just wanted to give a chance to kind of have a chat with him and let the world know a little bit about his likes and dislikes and his role in the tennis industry. So before we get too far along on that, can you tell us a little bit just about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So I think I started in a similar path that you are in right now. So I was working as a coach many moons ago, and had my own little pro shop and stringing services, customization. Did some stringing on the tour, some customization for a couple, let's say, junior players in Germany and stuff. And then like around 2007-ish, I got an offer to start as a promotions manager for Prince and K-Swiss at that time for the distribution partner. I took that opportunity and worked my way up. Kind of within 10 years nearly, I was with the team at Prince. Lived in various places. When I left Prince in 2017, I was responsible by the time for the athlete management, like taking care of the pro players. Like back in the days, it was Lucas Pouille, Brian Brothers, David Ferrer, and the likes of. And I was also heavily involved in the product marketing and product management side of it, like more from a line management, less from a development standpoint. That was done by our R&D guy, Tim Puttock. You mentioned to me you might even talk to him. He's still with Prince. And yeah, then I took an opportunity at Head as a global business manager for accessories. Like my passion has always been like the equipment side of it, specifically like rackets, strings, machines. And with that job opportunity opening up at Head, I felt pretty good to join, let's say, one of the biggest tennis companies in the world with a huge history. Lucky or funny enough that Howard Head was working with Prince and Head, so it was a logical step for me, kind of. Actually, I thought about it afterwards, but like it's funny. So yeah, and then my role evolved the past couple of years. So restructuring or following up on what Head has started. Prior, I joined in restructuring their entire string lineup. They were just ready to get into the string machine business and stuff. So I picked up that role, and kind of since then I work for Head and try to develop new things. Work with the various departments at Head, like also the pro player department, the R&D department, communications. Working a lot with the sales teams within the big countries to explore opportunities for our business and accessories. Because our opinion is that we are very well known for our rackets, very well known for our bags and stuff, but we haven't had the success, let's say, on the same level in the accessory business and particular strings. And personally, and also like our entire team is absolutely convinced that we have great product. We have great product in the pipeline, and we need more people to know about it and to use it, to test it, to try it. I mean, that's why you are also part of the Head family, and you got to know more about the products then. So yeah, that's my path. The past nearly 20 years, I need to say.
So obviously we kind of touched on this a little bit, but where did you grow up?
Where I grew up?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I grew up in the middle of Germany, kind of like as a little boy loving tennis. Started to play tennis when I was 5-6 years old. My first racket I got after I think I cried for nearly 3 hours on the flea market. I got my first racket from my dad, and from that point onwards, it was done. It was my sport. It was just my life. Like every decision I took had to do with tennis in my life so far.
And what was it like growing up a tennis player in Germany at that time?
Actually, it wasn't that easy because, like, for sure, it was a lot in the media. Like, you had Boris Becker coming up at that time, Steffi Graf, followed then by Michael Stich and all those guys. They like kind of were my idols as a junior. The other one was Agassi back then, so those were it was always in between Becker and Agassi for me, kind of. But yeah, you couldn't actually join a tennis club just because you needed to pay a fee to get in. The annual fee was very high. There was a waiting list and all this stuff. So actually, right the first couple months, I was looking from the outside in
Hmm.
because we lived close to a tennis club, and I was always standing at the fence and watching the other kids play and everything. And at one point, like the coach asked me with my little racket to come around and yeah, hit some balls. And then he actually helped my parents and myself that I was able to get into the club.
And you became like a pretty strong junior player too, right? So what was that whole experience like?
Yeah, I mean, I had a very good junior coach, and back then in 1992, 1993, it was like our club set up a real good development program, and we got a former German player, Jürgen Fassbender. I think he was top 15 in the world in the 70s, quarterfinalist Wimbledon stuff. So like through sponsors, he came to our club and he did a scouting program in our area. And two guys were the ones who were picked by him, which was me and a friend of mine actually. And then yeah, we were coached by him and traveled a little bit and played a lot of big junior tournaments. My first travel to the U.S. was in 1990. I think 1992 or 1993. I need to remember. It's a long time ago, many moons. um, but yeah, so but then my body unfortunately didn't hold up for becoming a professional or even better. Injuries came in, and but still tennis is and has been the passion. So like I just needed to step down a little bit and went a little slightly different path in education, but then back into tennis right away.
Hmm. Well, and you talked a little bit about your history in the industry and the business. So obviously you're working now for Head. You've got a long history in the game. Um, can you go over specifically again what exactly your title is at Head? And then again, you talked about this a little bit before, but again, just specifically, what are the things that you're doing day to day with the company?
So my official title is Global Business Manager, Accessories and Tennis Sensor. That means I'm particularly responsible for everything that is related to the racket, but not the racket itself. So we have my colleague Fabian. He is the Global Business Manager for rackets and bags. So we work really close with some other product managers, very talented young people, and we work close on a day-to-day business on like developing the right portfolio. Working with the R&D team on like the technical side of things, working with R&D and our vendors, production facilities to find out more specifics of what we could change, how we can adjust, all this stuff. We are getting the input from our pro player department, what they see happening on the tour, what they see happening in countries on junior level, the connection to coaches. So the beauty of that job on a day-to-day business is that you have like all different kind of facets of the business being connected in that role. So it's not really that every day is the same. And that makes it super exciting actually. And with the resources and the team we have and the allowance we have in the company, and let's say where the history and the DNA of Head is with like the development process and very focused, very structured, it's extremely helpful. Like we found out a lot over the past couple of years, which will now, like with the new product that we just launched, the Lynx Tour, I guess we're going to talk about that a little bit later too. We have more to come in the pipeline, which might be game changing, which might be like different approaches to the product itself. So I'm actually very excited about the next couple of years, actually, what to come. Once we have those challenging moments behind us right now, I think everyone is going through that phase too. which is tough for everyone. So that's why we stay at home and do this on a video.
Right, exactly. Instead of you flying out here to Connecticut. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, and again, working with you in the past, we know that product development takes a long time, before it actually gets to the consumer. You already kind of talked about the excitement of all this stuff, but when you're working in a process that sometimes takes a year or more before it really pays off, what keeps you motivated day to day?
Well, yeah, the time frame for, let's say, a string development is somewhat between like around 18 months at least, like depending on what your goal is and what you do. Actually, what keeps me motivated is, first of all, I'm a product geek myself, so I love like trying new things. I want to raise the bar. I want to reach new levels of like product development, what we can do, how the product performs, exploring maybe specifically on strings, exploring new colors, new shapes, like new production ways, like how the string gets produced. A lot of people believe it's a very easy process, but like it's actually very complicated, and so it's super interesting. And pretty much I learn every day something new, either through our R&D guys or through whoever, and that's actually super exciting.
So where do you think personally that came from, that desire to kind of, and it sounds to me like you're really just trying to figure out how you can kind of put the best product forward, just because personally that's important to you. Where do you think that mentality came from?
Uh, that's a good question, actually. I don't really know, but like when I was a tennis player, I think you were looking into how you can improve,
Right.
and there's always the stuff. There's your athletics, like your footwork, your body. Like you try to figure out your nutrition. Maybe you try to become smarter and better, like the way you sleep, the hours you sleep, all that stuff. But and like the footwear you wear, like the racket you play, the string you play. And I think it's maybe it's kind of in my DNA that I'm always interested in, yeah, becoming better at things. And where is the extra percentage that you can get to make the difference on court in your performance? And not only for myself, right now I see it more for like giving this opportunity to other people.
Sure.
And I think it's super exciting. And honestly speaking, sometimes like tennis players are hesitant to test and try, or at least not to test and try, that's probably wrong, but like to change their equipment for the better, because they feel they are successful, and but maybe they would even be more successful.
Right.
But that's also the interesting part of our sport, because it's super individual.
Right.
There is no wrong or right. There is only the way you actually can make it better for yourself. And if you are open-minded, and I think you fight with it probably on court with your students, so people stay open-minded, try new things, try to hit the ball slightly different, take a different approach to their game to win, surprise opponents. So we want to surprise the competition with great product. So yeah, that's kind of the motivation. That's kind of where it's coming from.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I talk to other, coaches and tennis players, I think that a lot of us are driven by that kind of desire to constantly be our best, even if it means making tiny little adjustments. So it's interesting. And again, I think that's something that, us tennis players share with each other, and maybe not other athletes. So thank you for that answer. Thinking about this too, it sounds like that's really exciting stuff for you, but I want to take kind of one step further. What's your favorite thing about working in the industry? Is it this whole process of trying to make things as good as they can be, and setting that bar at a higher level, or is it something else?
Yes, that's for sure like the main part of it. However, like it also comes with a certain like pride somehow. Maybe I don't know if that's the right word, but to kind of be able to actually set a standard in the sport that you love, like bringing something out to a pro. If you see a product all of a sudden being launched, whether you see the videos, whether you see pro players all of a sudden using the product that you have been working on for 18, 24, maybe even longer time. And then you see that product going out, and then people are trying and testing it. You read the feedback. Sometimes it hurts, but like it's at the same time, like you want to become better. So it's also important that we get like the feedback of people. Like we try to eliminate and think about everything in the first place, but sometimes afterwards, once you review, you find yourself like, yeah, maybe you should have thought about this and this a little bit more or whatever. So it's a learning process. Like the beauty actually is like you're never done. Like there is no ending. There's no ending. Like whether a product is ready, the next product is already in development and parallel. So there is no final cut of like, okay, I'm done, now I'm out. There is no mic drop moment.
I like that. What, so in all your years in the industry, obviously you've got some good stories. What, who are some of your favorite people to work with? Coaches, players. You don't have to pick one. I won't force you into that. But do you have any great stories, or do you have any kind of people that you really enjoyed spending time with, working with?
Yeah, I remember a guy from Connecticut. Like he was actually involved in a stringing service down in Florida at Eddie Herr. No, just kidding. Like one of the great things like that my job allows and has allowed in the past is to work with great people. So if we talk about pro players, I think like every athlete is different. And I was lucky enough at Prince to work with some of the best ever played the sport, specifically the Bryans in doubles. Super exciting to work with these guys. John Isner, unbelievable personality, great guy, very polite, super nice to work with. Now at Head, like I got access to some of the greatest athletes as well, like when we do stuff with Novak and Sasha Zverev. Which was that was kind of fun. So like I got to know Sasha back in 2010 or 2011. I'm bad with those numbers, but I got to know him at the Nike Junior Tour International Final, and I was with Prince, and we were doing the official stringer at this tournament and stuff. So he was like 12 years old, 13 years old, and I was there, and we were actually hitting some balls by the time then when the tournament slowed down a little bit and stuff. Like now, like when I joined Head, like last year in Indian Wells, we met for a photo shoot and some stuff for his string, because he's playing the Hawk Touch string, as you know, in a hybrid setup. And we started to hit balls again because I needed to warm him up somehow. And like one of his comments was like, yeah, a couple of years ago you were a little bit faster. I was like, yeah. So that's kind of like the funny moments when you see those guys actually developing from juniors to becoming pros and becoming, let's say, the future of the sport. Like then for sure, like we have somebody like Coco Gauff under contract at Head, unbelievable personality. Like you need to have you will automatically be in a good mood when you are around with her. Like you got a champion like Bianca Andreescu around you. Like the attitude, those young athletes, like it's sometimes even underestimated, like how they work, how much passion they put into the sport and everything. So that's great stuff. Yeah, and on the other hand, guys like you, like coaches, stringers, when we organize stringing services. I mean, you were part of the Eddie Herr stringing team twice, I think.
3 years, yeah.
Sorry. And guys like Mike Stevens, who joined that team, Pedro, who is now working for one of the competitions, he made his way into the industry. And if you see how people develop, the stuff that we went through, the hours we spent behind the stringing machine, that we worked our butts off for, like the kids getting high quality string ups for the juniors at those tournaments. It's all exciting because you have those different facets. It's like, it's never boring, to be honest. Like some people might shake their head and can't believe, but like that's really the beauty of this. Like there is no boring part, unless you need to run through Excel files.
Yeah, I think a lot of our a lot of our experiences together have been really great, whether it's been stringing conferences or tournaments or working on product, development stuff. It's always been a blast working with you. And then some of the other guys that I've gotten to meet through because of my work with you has been phenomenal. Like you said, Mike Stevens, who hopefully we'll talk to one of these days on one of these chats. But even Tim and Tyler from Prince, and Pedro from a competitor. We won't name him.
No, you can. I think like Pedro is also a very incredible individual, how he made his way up. So he deserves actually all the credit. Like he was learning from the first minute I got to know him, and he can be really proud of what he has achieved right now in his new role.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a great guy. Great guy. When we're talking about the Eddie Herr, like for me, Eddie Herr, that was one of the best, professional experiences of my life. So I love that tournament. What are some of your favorite tournaments that you've gotten to be a part of?
So you meant like the Thanksgiving dinner during Eddie Herr from Boston Market, or like, do you remember?
I came in the next day. I missed that one.
Oh, true. You took that one, but you have to ask Mike. Like, yeah. I think he still celebrates that evening. So what was the question again? Sorry.
What are some of your favorite tournaments?
I'm a huge fan of like a Grand Slam, like the Australian Open and US Open.
Yep.
They are like amazing tournaments. Like the beauty in Australia is like that the facility is really close to the city, which is unbelievable. The Australian people are very sporty people. They love sports, so the atmosphere is really great during that time in the entire city of Melbourne. New York as a city is like probably one if not the favorite city in the world for me. Very tough to see right now what's going on there, and talking to Tyler and Tim every week basically, and Ramon as well. So that's tough right now to see that. But yes, US Open for sure. It's unbelievable. One of the most fascinating tournaments remains Wimbledon to me. I think they have done an incredible job. They have this mix of being modern and tradition, that flair, that vibe that you feel on that. The history on that side is just incredible. Like if you love tennis, you love Wimbledon. Like it's just something else. I had the chance to be on the center court back then with Jürgen, my junior coach, and like it's just unbelievable. Like it gives you goosebumps every single time. Indian Wells is a beautiful facility. Like you have that relaxed atmosphere, great athletes, and usually I like tournaments where also like men and women play actually together. Mm-hmm. It just gives you something special. Like it's a better feeling to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I hadn't considered that, right? But we've had a couple tournaments in Connecticut over the years, and sometimes, a couple of years they were both men and women. Sometimes it was just men. Sometimes it was just women. And you're right. When it's two draws going like that, there's a lot more energy. It's a different vibe.
Yeah.
So speaking of players, who's your, right here, two-part question. Who are your favorite players of all time? And then who are your favorite players currently?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right?
So like favorite players of all time, or like the person who is basically, let's call it guilty, that I am so passionate about tennis, you can imagine as Boris Becker.
Sure.
That's kind of like the guy that is responsible that I started to play, saw him on TV and stuff. Now when I joined Head, actually, like I got one of his original rackets, which like really got me goosebumps. And like luckily enough, at a couple tournaments, I had the chance to have a chat with him, and he is the only player that I have ever asked actively for a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I've never asked, and I would never ask the tennis player to take any picture with me or anything. But he was the only one I actually actively asked to take a picture, because it was just for my memory, kind of like,
sure.
I've met him. Agassi, I think the way he changed the game back then was like being close to the baseline, playing that oversized racket, just like new attitude in terms of the clothing he was wearing. Being a sneakerhead, like it started probably also back then when this guy started with all his Nike shoes and stuff. And yes, from a respect side of things, like Sampras for sure, like that style was nice. And nowadays, I mean, Djokovic is absolutely impressive. I think the way he looks into the game, the way he tries to improve himself, the way he works with us on his equipment and stuff, the way his attitude is just absolutely champion-like. I think he's incredible. Like, and the same goes for Federer and Nadal. To be honest with you, I mean, those three guys have dictated that sport for more than a decade, and so it's incredible. But they have their goods and bads for out of different perspectives. Let's say like this. But probably the most complete package is probably Djokovic at the moment. I think the way he improved. And Federer is just like a ballet dancer. I mean, like the technique, the way he moves, everything is. I think he was the one that opened up the space for Nadal and for Djokovic to become those kind of champions, because he set a completely new standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we're thinking about that standard too, I mean, it's when you think about those guys, I mean, you can see that they're willing to do anything to be the best in the world at any given moment, you know, and
not to forget about the women's side, like I think really inspirational to me is actually Coco. As young as she is, her attitude, her work ethic, the way she behaves, like Coco, Bianca, they will be the future of this sport, and hopefully they stay healthy and don't get too many injuries or too much struggles with their body, because it became tougher and tougher on tour as well due to the hard court and all this stuff. So
yeah, I remember the first press conference I watched with Coco I was just blown away with her personality and her maturity. I mean, smart, funny, you know, intense in the right ways. Just she's a phenomenal person.
yeah, and I think that's also that also belongs to a champion, how those athletes kind of deal with the outside, let's say outside world, meaning their sponsors, the media, and everyone, and that's where you can also see where those champions are, and those that I just mentioned, like they are just a little bit superior, or different, or better in handling this compared to others. But yeah, I mean, great people, and I think tennis has some incredible talents coming along the way. I mean, we have one of the probably most promising athletes under contract behind Djokovic with Sasha Zverev for sure. Incredible, smart, and nice guy is Matteo Berrettini.
Mm-hmm.
Like that form is huge. Like that sound when he hits the ball, like it's incredible. So, but that's kind of where you feel already that passion, and like for me as well, like the player, the product, the interaction, and all that stuff. So like, I just love tennis at the end. Let's say like this.
So going back to kind of loving tennis and going back to your roots a little bit, you know, we talked about your favorite players growing up and whatnot. What was your favorite gear growing up? So like, we don't even talk about necessarily your first racket, but what was the first racket you were really proud of that you played with?
So my my first racket was a wooden cut down racket from a flea market for 10 German marks. So I think that didn't really resonate in a great career that I started with that racket. But like then I got, actually it was Mats Wilander's Rossignol Junior racket.
Oh wow, okay.
I remember that one because it was actually the first racket that I broke a string in.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of proud at that time.
Sure. Yeah, of course. First break is big.
Yeah. And then I was actually like, there were two rackets kind of. It was the Prince Graphite, the smaller head size with the 14, 18 string pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was it also went on to the Prestige Classic. So, and I remember, like, why do I remember the Prestige? I think when I was 13 years old, my parents bought my first stringing machine. It was what was a weight lift kind of like, and the rubber actually around it. So, and by the time there was nobody who was teaching stringing to me, so I taught it by myself. It was a very expensive experience because one Prestige looked very different after my first time stringing a tennis because it was kind of that soft frame and stuff, and I made so many mistakes. It really looked very different.
So what are you currently playing with then now, if those are the rackets that you liked growing up?
So right now I'm playing with a customized Gravity MP. I'm a huge fan of that 1620 string pattern. Played actually with the Lynx Tour string. I love the sound, the trajectory of the ball. Like it gives me enough kind of that control, but it also supports because like I don't play matches anymore or anything, but it kind of just supports and helps a little bit without taking over my technique. So, and then that's what I really like on this racket.
So would you say you kind of tend towards stiffer frames or more flexible frames overall?
Uh, it's probably more I'm more on the softer side of things. For example, I also really like the new Prestige Mid Plus that we just launched beginning of the year. To me, also a great racket. It's for sure it's more demanding. You got the smaller head size, the thinner beam, the denser string pattern, but like I can easily play that racket as well. So I like that kind of more softer impact feel.
Mm-hmm. What in terms of that, like lately we've seen a lot of rackets and a lot of companies are now starting to go kind of explore softer, more flexible frames again, after kind of being, really focused a lot in that stiffer, higher power kind of market for a while. Where do you see trends going forward? And, especially knowing that you have to design product that's going to be released in a year to 2 years away, what trends do you feel are going to be common and important down the road?
Yeah, so I mean, as you know, I'm part of helping and supporting the development of rackets at Head, but like I'm not solely responsible, so I don't want to take any credit away from anyone
For
here
sure.
or whatever. But what we discuss and what we feel in our team is that the whole topic of impact feel is becoming really important. To be honest with you, like me personally, I'm not down to all those numbers sometimes. We see this on the forum, like the RA and all this stuff. There are so many variables to the tennis racket in combination, all this stuff, that I'm sometimes struggling to break it down to, let's say, one number. I
Mm-hmm.
think what becomes more and more important and what people really feel is that impact feel, which is connected then to the sound and their perception of how the ball is flying, like the trajectory of the ball, the depth they get. I think there was a period of time where people just wanted raw power, like they just wanted to go for the winner and all that stuff. But I think also, like if you look at how the pros are playing, the athletes becoming stronger, better. Um, they they um, they play longer rallies and stuff. So like you need to feel more comfortable with your racket when you get stretched out on the court, when you do returns on this high speed. Like you want to feel the ball, and I think the combination of the racket and the string is super important, and that's why we also work really close with like the string development and the racket development.
So when you're talking about string development, we talked a little bit about it before. What can you kind of walk us through the process? And it doesn't necessarily have to be string, but the process of developing any product that you've had your hands in. What's that whole process like?
Well, for sure, let's say there are exciting parts of it, which like break down to the product itself and its development process. And then there are, let's call it a little bit more the dry fact kind of situations. So for sure, you need to look into the market of like, how are you positioned in terms of the pricing structure globally? Where do you see your collection going? What is your goal of positioning the brand? How do you want to have the brand being perceived by the audience out there? So that's kind of where you look into this. And then for sure, from a playability standpoint, you really look like, okay, first of all, like how can we improve the game with a new product? Like we don't want to bring out product just to bring out product. It needs to bring benefits to the consumer, and we want to raise the bar, and we want to lead our way into the market with new product. For sure, there are, especially in strings, there are way more brands out there than in tennis rackets, for example, that have, and there is such a high selection. So that's certainly where we're looking. Okay, where do we fit in as a brand? Where do we want to go? Where do we see the trend? Which kind of audience do we attract? Do we want to attract in the market? So that's where you sit down with the team, and then you kind of start deciding which route you want to go. If that makes sense to you, like.
So when you're talking about the team, especially too, like thinking from start to finish, and again, this is obviously going to be an estimate, but thinking from start to finish, how many people do you feel like are involved in the process? You know, when it comes to design, you know, play testing and all of that stuff, just to get to the final product.
So let's take play testers out, because we test with hundreds of people around the world when we do a new product. But like just internally, it's probably 10 to 12 people at least. So we discuss with our, let's say, product management group. So like I get, as I said, my colleague Fabian is running the racket side of things. We have a very talented product manager on the racket side. Her name is Tiffany. We got her, my manager, Jürgen, who's always involved in this process. So we sit down and kind of like, okay, what do we believe it is, what we need to address? Then we connect with the pro player department and ask them, okay, like, here's an idea we have, like, what do you think? Where's the trend going? Like, is this something that could be workable for you as a pros? What specific needs do you have maybe to attract juniors or to attract more established players? Then for sure you connect the other dot towards the R&D, like how do we technically get to the product that we want to have? So you have those guys. Then we have actually a dedicated testing team that you need to get involved. Like what's your benchmark? Who are you testing against? Which racket are you picking that you want the product to be tested in the first place? Which string tension do you use? Make sure that the rackets are all strung by the same person, for example, for the testing. So we eliminate all the variances. And then, like, for sure, also then at some point it becomes my job to get the communications department being involved. So what are we doing in terms of advertisement? Do we need certain tools? Then it becomes a part of the design department, because you need a packaging. Then you need to work through timeframes with the vendor, production, printing of the packaging. You need to get the countries involved at some point, because somebody needs to sell it and distribute it. So, but that's kind of the beauty, as I said earlier in our chat, that there are so many facets. Like I could go on and on and on, probably.
Going back to your design, you know, talking about the design people, I think the design of the Lynx Tour experimental packaging is just killer. I think it's so good, so good.
Yeah, we had a briefing about this, and it's like, okay, it's always difficult because you try to challenge yourself to be different, for sure. And but like, what does different in the first place? What does different mean? And like, how can you actually be different? Because there are so many things that have been out there. So we try to get inspirations from other sports, or like what's happening in the fashion scene, or like in the tech scene and stuff. That's how actually the color came to fruition. Remembering those champagne colored iPhones back in the days. And yeah, and then we talked to our design team, and we were like, go crazy, just do what you want to do. And so they came up with that stuff, and it was they nailed it pretty much with like two executions.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Typically how many products do you need to have, like, in developing something like that? So I mean, two sounds like crazy fast. Like they just nailed it. But typically,
yeah, because they just nailed it because they had all the freedom. So there was no guideline. There was no like, okay, it needs to be like this. You have to follow this. We need to think about this. It was just like, so if you would do this as a designer, You look on the wall, you know how string packagings look like. How would you do it? Like, how do you think we get the attention of people to look at this? And I think that that kind of helped and was the good thing about this product, or the packaging at the end.
Right. Now, when we're talking about the product itself too, so thinking about that part of it, how many versions of a string typically?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, enough,
enough.
enough.
Yeah.
Because like, but at some point you need to. Also, one of our jobs is to take decisions at some point, because you can go picky, picky, crazy, adjust, maybe do a change, not like, do we test one more time? But like at some point, you just take a decision and you go for it once you feel confident.
Gotcha. And so something we've kind of talked a little bit about, but we haven't really, gone too into depth with it. We've talked a lot about the product itself, but you're also responsible for the stringing side of things, the actual installation, the head machines and whatnot. And you've got a long history working with stringing machines and stringing services. What's been your experience on that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, like when I joined the company, like they just had launched or started to launch the head stringing machine. So hopefully we will also bring that machine next year to the States. Working on a program here. Then I saw that, with my experience from the previous brand, from Prince, that we are lacking a customization machine. So we started to work ahead on the 3-in-1 machine for swing weight, balance, and weight. And now, like, I'm actually working on 2 programs to, like, raise the bar again and bring it to the next level, which will probably not happen within the next 2 years, most likely. But that's how long it takes. Like, you interview the stringers, you go to the tournaments, you talk to everyone individual, you try to nail it for like the tournament side of things, you want to nail it for the retail side of things, you want to have it look good, you want to have it like easily being maintained and all this stuff. So that's kind of like the whole exercise that you go through. But it's actually super exciting. The beauty on the string machine or on the machine side of things is that you don't necessarily need to follow a certain timing. Like, nobody is expecting a new string machine to launch on March 1st. It's probably different than on rackets. Like, there is a kind of a flow of when people kind of expect new iterations, new developments on rackets, specifically on established frames and stuff. And that kind of gives me the freedom to really bring out the best product on that side.
What's been some of your best experiences, working as I'm trying to think of actually your role specifically, but I guess I would say leading a stringing team in tournaments and managing the stringing services. What have been some of your experiences like doing that?
I mean, I was lucky enough actually to get to know some of the best stringers in the world pretty early in my career. So to mention, like, Richard Parnell, who we actually partner with Head, with his company Parnell Knot. So like, we established, like, since 2 years, global workshops for Head partners, like where we really want to show our customers, our partners, coaches, how important stringing is, and how easy it is to become a really good stringer if you really look into those details, and try to open minds in that sense of the business, and how important it is as well for preventing injuries and all that stuff. Then I work with guys like in Indian Wells. We have Julian Lee. He's also part, like, of Grand Slam tournaments. We got, like, in Spain, we got a network with Xavi Segura, who does the Davis Cup team of Spain. We are partnering up. So like, I was lucky enough to work with all those guys and still work with those guys. And then, yes, I was asked to organize various stringing services in the world. So like, we did Halle, the grass court tournament, where I organized the international team. As mentioned earlier, we did Eddie Herr a few times, like with, I think, how many machines did we have at the end? Like 9 or 10, like in different places, to like satisfy kind of nearly 3,000 juniors. We did Atlanta, which was one of the craziest tournament, because it's happening I don't know if it's downtown part of Atlanta, but like it's happening in that uh, parking lot area, kind of where they build a stadium and stuff. So like completely different environment. Indian Wells, unbelievable streaming service. Like it's huge. It's like the fifth Grand Slam. And yeah, I was lucky enough to visit all the streaming services at the Grand Slams as well. So like I have, even though it's competition, you know the other guys from the other brands, and like you have a chat when you see each other and talk a little bit for sure.
That's awesome. What would you say is your favorite part about stringing specifically? So that's a tough question, I would say, but what is it that you enjoyed about stringing? Because obviously you strung a lot growing up, and you strung
Yeah,
professionally as well. What's your favorite part about
yeah.
stringing?
I actually still string quite a lot because to me, like for example, in the office, it's funny. Like I have our machines for sure close to my plate, like to my office. And right now, I even have like some prototype stuff there, so it's even more exciting to test something new. But for me, stringing right now is kind of like it's relaxing. So like people in the office sometimes like, what are you doing? Why are you stringing records? I'm like, I'm taking my time out here, like my 15-20 minutes, like behind the rackets, look at the frame, feel the string, feel the product with your hands. Just gives you a different experience, and it kind of like opens up your mind for maybe new ideas or what you would like to improve and see. So that's what stringing became to me right now, like more like relaxing and creating new ideas, new thoughts, stepping away a little bit from, let's say, the routine, or if you just need to have a break from the screen and emails and stuff.
Right. All right. Well, I think wrapping it up, I want to think of one really good question for you.
Oh my God.
What, oh God, what can we think of for you? I would say, what is your favorite band or music group at the moment? How's that? I'll give you a meatball.
Oh my goodness. Like that's a tough one.
Right now.
I,
It doesn't have to be all time. It could be right now. What are you enjoying the most?
let me check my playlist here. Like I really don't have like the one favorite at the moment. Like whew. Like if I'm at, let's say like this, if I'm at home, kind of like just right now where you're kind of forced to stay at home, I really go through like the classics, like a Dire Straits, like Sting, Pink Floyd and stuff, like really relax and lay back. If I'm driving in the car, or like if I'm in the mood, like you certainly listen to a Pearl Jam, or like a more heavy stuff like Metallica or Guns N' Roses kind of things. So it always depends on my mood. It can be hip hop as well, or like some rap stuff like R&B, really. But at the moment, it's more guitar and drums driven. Let's say like this.
Gotcha. Good deal, man. All right, buddy. Well, thanks again for taking the time to interview, and
Thank you.
it's always a lot of fun chatting with you. And we'll talk to you soon.